reason that consciousness does that is just to keep experiencing new things. Like you said, there's
Yes. Yeah.
infinite timelines and infinite possibilities. And the way we learn is we face challenges a lot of times. Like a lot.
Hey everybody, it's Tanya here. I'm so excited to share Women Working with Light. It is a series of interviews with women from around the world who are doing what they love in service to themselves and to others. They are our healers, light workers, way showers, starseeds, artists, channelers, and so much more. In this episode, I speak with Wendy Wright of Light Always Wins. Wendy is a farmer, an alchemist, and a mystic. And we had such a great conversation with so many topics, I've had to split it into 2 sections. So enjoy, and don't forget to check out part 2, and I'll put the link below.
All right. Hey everybody, it's Tanya here. Welcome to another episode of Women Who Work with Light. And today I'm super excited because I'm going to be interviewing Wendy Wright of Light Always Wins. And if you haven't seen our conversation that we had not too long ago, just click up here if you're on the YouTube, and if not, check in the show notes and you can have a listen to our previous conversation. And I'm just going to introduce Wendy, and then we're going to just chit chat all over the place today. So Wendy is a farmer, a mystic, a podcast host, and a spiritual teacher. After experiencing the tragic loss of her mother, she embarked on a journey that led her back home to the soul. On her podcast, Light Always Wins, she talks to people about their unique awakening journeys and dives into all things spiritual. She recently started a collaborative mystery school where she teaches esoteric principles to help people find their inner knowing, divine connection, and gain an understanding of the fabric of our universe. It is a space for like-minded souls to connect, explore, and relate. She also offers Sabian symbol readings, which are another way to lay out your astrological blueprint of your soul. And you can find Wendy on Instagram at Light Always Wins, and her podcast on Apple, Spotify, and other podcast platforms. And if you just click in the show notes or click that more button, there's always good info in there if you didn't know. And check that out, and you can find some direct links there. So here we go. Wendy, thank you for coming on and being a guest with me and chatting today. And I've got to ask you straight off the bat, tell me about the law school and the whole synchronicity of your wonderful acronym, the LAW.
Oh, yeah. Well, first, thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited. We always have great conversations. So the law school, yeah, Light Always Wins stands for law. And it's interesting because when I decided to start this podcast, I started to brainstorm names for it. And Light Always Wins was the first name that came to my mind.
Oh.
And I was like, well, I guess I might keep brainstorming just to see what else I come up with. And I just came right back to it. And I went to bed one night and I woke up and I was like, oh, Light Always Wins is law. And then I immediately had a vision of the weighing of the heart ceremony from the Egyptian Book of the Dead, which is actually, that's what we commonly call that book, but it's actually the way of life or the way to the light. Mm-hmm. And it's the scales with the heart on one side and the feather on the other, which represents, all of the deeds that we've done being held in our heart. You want your heart to be as light as a feather. The other way I look at it is the heart representing matter and the feather representing spirit, and being in a balance between those two in this physical realm that we live in.
I love that. And I love I was thinking about that this morning, the synchronicity of it, but also the theme of balance and judgment without judgment. And I think that's a really interesting theme and something that I've also seen in the work that you're doing. And I'm really curious to know what made you finally connect into it and move into that, because we had talked about it before as something you were thinking about doing, but is it the energy that's happening now that just kind of gave you the final push?
It's just something that I've really felt deeply in my soul that I wanted to do. And I guess what really got me there was just kind of like hashing out my ideas and presenting it to a couple of people. And really, it's funny because this is the first time I've had a project where it's not designed based on my own thinking, like my, who says our own ideas are all our own anyway. But normally, like if I'm setting up my farm, I come up with a plan and I hash it out and it's very structured. And with this, it was so much more intuitively guided that it took me a while to kind of figure out how to do it. Like it's taken a bit to find the balance, again, that word, between being guided and putting that guidance into action. So I think it just took a bit for me to figure out, okay, so you have the guidance. Now let's start putting it on paper and figure out how you're actually going to structure this,
Yeah. And it's such a wonderful thing when you follow that intuitive flow. And I'm finding the similar situation myself. So there's definitely a wonderful momentum that is happening. And I feel like this interconnection that so many of us are having right now is so important, and to share our thoughts and ideas and the energy. And one of the things that I've always loved is, I always call it info sharing. So sharing something that other people either maybe don't know, or they don't know how to find, or that they might know someone else that needs it. And I think that is a thread that many of us have. And so bringing that to the forefront is really exciting. I think something that a lot of us are starting to connect into that,
Yeah.
So did you create it more of a sense of, these are the things that I love that I want to share, or is that part of a bigger picture of, these are the people that I want to serve?
It's more, I guess it's based on whatever guidance I'm getting. So for my own journey, I've always been guided to certain books or certain topics. And I've taken on the mystery school in that same way. And what I'm kind of finding is that where I'm starting is with very basic principles. So for example, like the first month we focused on astrology, because astrology is sort of like a second language to me. And a lot of the old alchemists and everything had to know about astrology to really understand like what I would call the organic matrix, like what the archetypes are, that a lot of our personalities are based on, and what archetypes create the story of like the hero's journey. So a lot of the stuff that I'm interested in is like, it's old knowledge, but it's also knowledge that we all have within us. So my goal is to just sort of strike that remembering in everyone. And we each have a piece of the puzzle, like you were saying, and so you were asking, like, is it about the people I want to be of service to? To be honest with you, I don't have a really specific idea of who it is that will be attracted to the school. I think it's anybody, I guess, who would be on this journey of really wanting to get closer connection with their own soul. So I feel like that could be anybody,
And, it's something I was just thinking about that as you were saying it, that it's this pivot point that we've been on for a few years, but then you can sort of break it down into smaller pieces and really see, and without getting sidetracked, because that's easy for us to do, into a whole conversation about timelines, is watching this way of working for people shift, where in the past, like I've got a background in science and university and teaching and writing curriculum, and it used to be extraordinarily structured and set out and had to be done a very specific way, and you had to know. And then there was this thing sort of in the early to mid 2000s where everybody was really talking about you have to know your demographic and who you're going after, and you write for them, and you don't do what you want to do for yourself, you do it for them. And now that is really sort of going, and it's the energy that we are doing things that we love. And it's like the wonderful image of the beacon or the lighthouse, right? It's like you're doing something you love, you're very passionate about it, the energy is there, and people see that and go, oh, what's that about? And start to come. And it's such a beautifully intuitive and flowing way to work. And that really attracts, I think, a lot of people that are on their awakening journey and are just looking for something without actually know they're looking for it, you know? So it just kind of comes. So
I feel like I get that feeling. I got that feeling. I feel like when I found you, you know, it's funny that you say that, because I remember finding your work and being like, oh, she's saying like exactly what I'm like looking for right now. You know what I mean? So it's cool. Like that idea of becoming magnetic, you know, by, I feel like we do that by sending our frequency out when we're in like a brain and heart coherence, and we're really like in that flow and we're creating that frequency, it starts to broadcast out, and it starts to actually affect this morphogenetic field all around us, you know? I've been interested in like Dr. Joe Dispenza's work. And he talks about how when you're in fight or flight, or you're stressed or depressed, your energy field is very shrunken and kind of broken. And because you're not developing, you're not really creating your own energy source, you're drawing from the field around you. And I had this realization. I'm like, wow, you know, if there's moisture in the air and water holds memory, like what are all these memories that are stored in this like collective unconscious that we're drawing from when we're in that mode? You know, it's almost like a recycling of karma or something, you know, like, and that's when you start to feel sort of trapped. And that's when those really negative kind of shadowy thoughts come in. And it's like the minute you decide that you want to flip that switch and start broadcasting out, like get to where you can regulate your nervous system, which is like taking deep breaths, becoming present. That's when you start to sort of like get more in that creator mode, and you start to like broadcast out, which then makes you magnetic.
That's such a great metaphor. I'm just thinking about the collective consciousness and how we're all breathing in the energy of each other. And I always liken it to, because of the channeling that I do, a lot of the, for those of you who don't know, I channel spirit, and I used to channel a variety of different energies, starting with some higher dimensional beings, and then angelics and elementals, who are the spirits of nature. And then the past couple of years, it's been all galactics all the time. And the galactics often there's like a similar thread. And one of the things I hear, especially from the Pleiadians, who are all about joy and play, is they liken it to playing in the energy, where it's not a good or a bad, it's just being in that moment and playing in it. And I can't remember which group it was. At one point, they were talking about having it like experiences, and you it's like a toy that you can put back in your toy chest. And do you want to play with it again and go through that experience again and see what's new, what's changed, other people's perspectives, your perspective, and then put it away and try it again? Or do you want to allow it to come forward and, you know, take a look and go, yeah, that was really fun, I really enjoyed that, but I'm done, and you release it and off it goes, which is, you know, a parallel to trauma release and all that. But I really like the concept of that. I mean, I'm just thinking, my brain's sparking as it does when I chat with you, and I'm thinking of Massimo Moto and all the water messages and everything. It's such an interesting way of being in the world these days. Once you have this awareness and you start to, it's like the tip of the iceberg, isn't it? You get an awareness and you move from one idea to another.
I like what you mentioned about playing in it too, because something for me is that I'm a person who tends to be attracted to the dark. And I actually like researching really, really deeply and finding out what is the underbelly, of this institution or system or whatever, So it's interesting because I think I'm finally coming to a point where I'm starting to see that side of myself and not judge it as a bad thing. I think for a long time, I've looked at that and thought, oh no, people don't like it when you talk about that stuff. It's sort of this shadow work. I feel like that I've been going through where it's like, no, that part of you is a part of you. Like, don't deny it. And it's a really valuable part too. So
it totally is. And I think I because this is fresh in my mind from some things that I had been reading or some people that I was talking to, a lot of people come into what we call the awakening. There's so many words for it, right? The spiritual shift, the change in consciousness, awareness. But a lot of people that are coming into it, they are really looking for a thread of progression, right? Like, what step am I at? And am I doing it right? And is this my soul's purpose? And I think that's part of the process, and the whole concept of dark night of the soul and experiencing that is absolutely valid. And I mean, there's so many things that I want to address around this, but I mean, first off is the toxic positivity. I don't like these terms. I think they're very labely, but it is a phenomenon that happens a lot where people feel a sense of discomfort in allowing themselves to explore darker topics or the darker sides of themselves. And it's like, oh, well, that's scary and nobody wants to hear about that. So let's make it all pretty and let's put lots of sparkly lights and do affirmations, and nothing wrong with that as an integration in a whole practice. But when it becomes a way to avoid it, you get to use terms like spiritual bypassing and all that jazz. But I think it's really valuable to allow yourself to go through that process, because what you're going to discover, and again, this is my perspective, talking about my own self, is that in this wonderful field of duality that we're hanging out in as energy beings, there is an ability for us to hold as much dark as we do light. And so it is natural for those of us who have been through the depths of despair and the dark and worked through it and acknowledged it and let it be conscious and then let it go, to now understand that we have created that space for the balance. So this whole thing is going to be about balance today.
Love it. I mean, the scales, you brought on the scales, lady. So
I was doing that this morning. I was like, Sabian Symbols. I got to check out a little bit more about this. And I was like, how does that work? Like, did you plan that, the scales and the law, or was it just something you were drawn to and then it just happened?
Literally just was it was an epiphany I had after the name Light Always Wins came. I just woke up with this epiphany. Oh, it's law. And as soon as I heard law, I saw the scales. Like, but it wasn't just the scales. It was the weighing of the heart ceremony scales specifically, so it was just completely intuitive. I can't really claim anything on it. Like, it literally came to me.
But it's all sort of connected. And every time you say the weighing of the scales, I just keep seeing Anubis in my mind.
Yeah.
And I know that you have a deep love of researching, as do I. We have that in common, because I just love it. And I don't know. I think this is like past life, Akashic stuff, whatever. But it's just part of me, and I brought it to the table this time. And it's like, oh, something new. I get to learn something new. I love it. I'm so curious about everything. But your love of Egyptology and that entire realm, tell me a bit about how that plays into your work, because I know that's really important to you.
I guess like when I had a very, very spontaneous sort of awakening, I don't know how to explain it. It was just like I all of a sudden was obsessed with Egypt. Like I don't think I had ever really had as much of an affinity for it until I awakened. And I think it's the truth seeker in me. As well as I know I've had past lives there, but I think that there are so many truths within those hieroglyphs and within the real stories of what happened, throughout those civilizations. That's really like what draws me to it. And it's just fascinating. There's so many things that they did and that we don't understand, and we don't know how they did it. Like, how did they build the pyramids? There's so many mysteries. And I'm also just like absolutely, enthralled with mysteries as well. So, but there was also just like this really deep resonance and deep understanding whenever I started to like watch things about Egypt. And I'm actually like remembering back when I like had this really crazy experience. When I awakened, it was like my crown had blown open. And I remember, when I had this crazy awakening, my crown sort of just like blew open. And I remember I had this sort of like progressive expansion of consciousness, like leading up to this experience I went through. But after like my crown was blown open, I essentially had access to like the Akashic records for like 3 days. And I could tell you like all of these things that were in the Bible. Like there was all this stuff I just understood suddenly. And I was already watching Gaia TV a lot. And I just was completely magnetized to the shows about ancient Egypt and the pyramids. Right. And as I was watching them, I would be like, yep. Nope, that's not true. Yep. Like, I was like grading what they were talking about. So there was just this really, really deep connection with it, though. And I feel that if we could understand more about our ancient civilizations, like the Egyptians, the Mayans, I just think that it would unlock so much for us, like spiritually, technologically, like just on so many levels.
People like to call it downloads now, but just having an awareness. Now, I never had like you did, where it was like chock-a-block of info just came through. I've just kind of always had a knowing about things, and it took until I was quite a bit older to actually allow myself the belief that what I was knowing was accurate. So it's a very different experience. But going back to the different civilizations and the knowledge and the information and the mysteries that are there, I think something that I find really fascinating is our current civilization, and not just North Americans, but around the world, of this really intense amnesia beyond sort of what is presented to us as history, and having this sort of hierarchical thinking that, well, we're here now and our technology is so great, therefore we are better than anyone that's ever happened. And it just boggles my mind, because perhaps it is the exact opposite. Yes. There are all these, like, how did they make the pyramids? A lot of people are thinking the sound waves and being able to move huge objects by using ley lines or other electromagnetic forces, which makes plausible sense to me. But imagine what's in all these other civilizations that we have sort of gone, oh no, we're better than them because we have Wi-Fi.
Yeah, I know. It's funny. And one of the things that I always feel is that like, it gets so up close and personal when you think about it this way. Like, how does your body operate? I mean, isn't that the greatest technology that exists? Like,
yeah, it's pretty trippy.
And come back to like the human body and nature and the way that it all coexists. It's like we can't really recreate that technology. I mean, maybe in some ways, but it's like so why don't we learn how to harness that rather than going outward, 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 outward? Like I think that's just the cycle that our I guess the cycle that humanity is in, and we're going to learn from it all. But it's been more about like focusing outward. And now I believe we're in a shift where it's coming back in because it went so far out, and people are going to keep pushing farther out, like exploring space even more. And like, it's getting crazy, right? Like our consciousness is becoming more galactic, but they're the people who are more like, uber materialists don't necessarily understand the concept that all of that is also within you,
And it's a bit of a stretch for a lot of people. Like many of us that are spiritual, that have a very high degree of sensitivity. All people do. It's just a matter of remembering and allowing yourself to feel it. But many of us who are going through this, and I know especially those people that identify as starseeds, who are people who believe that they were put here by different galactic races, or that they have a connection to different galactic races, or are having a multidimensional experience, which is more my train of thought, really get kind of hung up in that origin story about where am I from and how does this all work? And it becomes very easy to disassociate, right? To take yourself up and out of the physicality because it's uncomfortable in here. You're having that human experience. It's dense. It's hard. Like, do I want to, everyone's talking about timelines. Do I want to stay here and have this, dark experience with AI and all that jazz? Or do I want to go this way and go integrate or, like whatever. And I can see that there are so many people that are really struggling with that concept and getting stuck in it's like a way to not deal with the physical, because perhaps in a way, as you're saying, as we're looking out, it's so disconnected, like the current state of being where many people are very disconnected from the earth, who are really, and there's nothing wrong with that. Right. And that's another challenge for a lot of people, is that you start to go through the awakening experience and you want to tell everybody because you're so excited and there's all this stuff. And then it can get very judgy very quick. But that, I think, is part of the whole process.
Yeah. I still struggle with that because I feel so passionate about the earth and just how things could be. You know what I mean? But you realize, like, well, I'm just one person. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't control the way this goes. But like what you were saying about, sometimes wanting to escape this, like the physical, I also found myself like looking at just issues in the world instead of looking at things within myself. You know what I mean? And I think that I really do think that it's an inside job, like changing the world or whatever. If that's like, what you want to be a part of, I really do feel like it's an inside job, because whatever we haven't healed, we project out into our reality, So, but I do think we're on the edge of going that route. I don't know. I'm curious what you feel about, like, timeline. I mean, what do you see as your theory of what's going on right now with like the evolution of humanity?
First off, I just have to say that I think you and I are going to have a lot of conversations in the year to come. There's so much to talk about. My theory. It flows, but there's always, for me, a sensation of, it's like having an awareness of everything happening all at the same time and seeing an infinite amount of possibilities. And this is part of my gift that I have, which I call now a gift. Up to now, I didn't understand what it was. So it's kind of, and it can be a little paralyzing, because it's like you're so overwhelmed by all the concepts and all the ideas that you can see which way do you want to go, which I think is exactly a representation of what everybody is going through. which goes back to the inside job, which is your physicality. How can it not be expressing what is going on in the world? How can you not be? I mean, you can look at these beautiful pictures of the fractals that look exactly like a lung or a tree or the root system. And how can you not see that we are part of absolutely everything from the ether into the subatomic and the atomic and all the way up? We are all the same. We're all having the same experience. And so as we are shifting ourselves, we are shifting everything around us. And then the fun part is everybody gets to put their own flavor in the soup, because we all have our own ideas. Right. So, look, I looped back to your original question. What is it that I think is coming down the pipe? I feel that I really see in my visual, there's two streams. And that is such a simplified way of what I'm actually seeing. There is a show that I saw, and I'm not a big TV person. It was a take from the Marvel universe, and I think it was the character Loki, and he had to go in and do all these timelines. And I saw what they put as their representation of a timeline, which if you looked at it sideways was like a spine with all the nerves coming off. And I was like, I get that. That makes a lot of sense. And so as all these timelines are branching off, they are infinite possibilities. But there is a main thread that goes through. And so my belief system is that all of those of us who have come here, and not just humans, but sentient life on the planet. And that can be like mycelium, that could be the birds and the trees, everything. There is a consciousness to it all. And upon that main line are all these rules that we've agreed to. Okay, when we go to Earth, there's going to be gravity, there's going to be a blue sky, there's going to be one moon, all these basics that we all take for granted, but yet there is that collective agreement. Outside of that collective agreement is your thoughts, your beliefs, your experiences, and they all go ping-a-ping-a-ping. But in that collective agreement, I'm seeing a shift and coming to a point where some people are going to want to take a new branch, and some people are going to want to stay on the continuing branch. And there is no right or wrong in it. And I think that's something I really want to express, because a lot of people, myself included, I'm going to put my hand up. I went down the fear train not too long ago, and I was like, what is this? I mean, this was like something I haven't experienced in a long time. And very short, just to explain what I'm talking about, I had read a thread. Somebody was talking about a date where there was going to be all this technology that was going to go offline, and the solar flares and all of this stuff. And I was like, oh my God, I got to get prepared. I've done nothing. What happens if there's no power? And I was like literally at the grocery store the next day buying all of this stuff to put in a bin to make sure if there was a survival issue. I've never done that. And then I stepped back from it and I went, okay, like the undercurrent of this is really fear-based. There's a lot of good stuff that came out of it. I now have a bit of a plan. Awesome. But I'm not afraid and living in that fear state where I'm like, I have to have a bunker and I have to all this stuff. That's kind of what I'm seeing, where there's this timeline shift happening, where people are literally making these choices, and you're standing at the door with your hand on the doorknob going, am I going to keep doing this and shut the door and I'll just go back in and, finish dinner? Or am I going to open the door and go see what's out there?
Yeah.
And perhaps what's out there is what people call the 5D, or the new shift, or the enlightenment. Words. Energetically, it just feels like a lot of ease and flow, and being able to just tap into that knowingness of yourself and say, yeah, that feels right. I'm going to try that and see where that goes, instead of the fear and the resistance. So, gosh, did that answer your question, or just raise more?
But then what happens? So I agree. Like, I see a bifurcation in a way of like human consciousness, but what's next? That's my question, is like, does this mean that, one way, say those people pass, do they reincarnate into a different existence? Do you know what I mean? Like, that's
Mhm.
kind of my question, is like, does this all stay on the same earth plane, or does it divide it? Like, there's some people who have theories that the earth is like going to literally divide. And I just
Mm.
find that really hard to imagine, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that all came up. Like, I remember when the whole like Planet X Nibiru fear factor was out there. I think a lot of this stuff is planted um,
Well, I was
as
thinking of
little
like
seeds,
Dolores
hey?
Cannon. You know,
Say again?
Dolores Cannon is one of
Oh,
those, like,
yeah.
says the earth is going to split in two. And I like knowing what people think. You know, I just love like exploring the different theories.
Yeah.
And I guess for me, I see it possibly just people kind of ending up on different spheres after this life. Like, eventually, maybe there is some other planet developing that people who make this choice will go incarnate on. And then people who make that choice will go incarnate on, but maybe not either. Maybe sometimes the greater a polarity, the stronger the field. And sometimes like it causes things to come back together. So I don't know.
Hmm.
This is me getting like way too up in my head, but
No, I love it. I
it's
love it.
things I like to think about and explore, you know, because I just literally I have talked to people where when we're talking, I almost feel like we're living in different dimensions because
Absolutely. Hmm.
because of like what I'm interested in and in what they're interested in. And so it's just, to me, it's kind of amazing. Like, it's kind of amazing. Like,
Well, that touches so much on my own personal belief system where I see all of this happening, but I also have a bigger perspective and seeing it as many people are stuck in the physical. New Earth is going to be a physical Earth,
yeah,
where I see it more as a vibrational shift.
yeah,
And it's already happened. It's happening. I see
yeah,
it. I like the image either of an onion or a stack of paper. I think stack of paper is a bit more visual for people to think of it that there's all these dimensions, right? They're all
yeah,
happening at the same time. They all have their own timelines, but they're stacked, so you don't actually see. But sometimes you can, your vibration will shift and you will go one to the other. So people often say, "How do you know you're in 5D?" And we don't. But my perception is those moments where you are really into something that you love, you're really experiencing it, good or bad, and you lose time,
yeah,
right? And you're having that experience, you're doing something you love. Like, for instance, I have these beautiful roses because I'm house sitting and I was out cutting them today. And I thought I was there for 5 minutes. I was out there for 25 minutes. And so for me, that's that, tapping into a different vibration, right? Like,
yeah.
the vibration is different. And it's also people have a lot of theories about creationism, and that creating is pulling in from other vibrations and pulling things down. I personally believe that with the work that I'm doing and channeling. But I
Mhm.
like, back to the physical representation of our universe and our planet. I see it like I love this. I think I said this to you before about the Men in Black analogy at the very end of the movie, where it's a little dude and our solar system and our galaxy is just a marble.
Yeah,
And it's a little dude, and he goes into his locker and he picks up 3 marbles and off he goes. Like I see it more like that, like a packet.
yeah,
And the packet is consciousness that has created this packet. So when people think or say, yeah, there's so much more to our solar system and that's 5D, I kind of go, well, that doesn't resonate with me because for me, that's still third dimensional or a different dimension because it's a physicality, right?
mhm.
Whereas I see the higher dimensions more of as a vibration.
Yeah,
So, which I think very much like people that pass over, who, whether you call it dying or passing over or reincarnating, is shifting to a different vibration.
mhm.
And so
Yeah,
people who are mediums can actually tap into that vibration and are feeling it.
mhm.
People that I mean, there's a whole theory around people with mental health issues like schizophrenia, where they're hearing voices. Are they actually tapping into a different dimension?
Yeah,
I believe so, because I
I
have
do
worked
too.
with people who have mental health issues like that. And it's just that there's no control, and it's very scary for a lot of people that go through it.
Totally.
But yeah, and okay, so now I'm curious about your take on the whole timeline shift and split and all that. And I love that word bifurcation. I'm going to put that down somewhere.
Yeah. Gosh, see, I don't have anything that I've settled on because I just don't think that I'm capable of fully understanding. But what I do feel, or the theory that I kind of like to have, I like looking at the yugas from Hinduism. Do you know what those are? Like the different ages?
I
Have you
might
ever?
know. I'm very visual, so I'm not IDing
So
with the
it's,
word, but yeah.
imagine a wheel, and up top you have this big section and it's the golden age, and then cascading down from that it's the silver age, and then the bronze age, and then down at the bottom is the dark age.
Okay.
And I feel like, so like when you're in the golden age, you're like full spirit, like you're basically as much spirit as you can be existing here. And then silver, you're like you've lost a quarter of the spirit, and you start to sort of develop an ego. And then the bronze age, you're half spirit, half matter. And then the dark age, you're only a quarter spirit and you're three quarters matter. And I feel like we are transitioning out of the dark age and into the bronze age,
Hmm.
and where we would be half spirit, half matter. And I feel like, because a lot of people are like, we're coming into the golden age, and like, whatever, that's just language. I mean, sure, like it's better, it's golden, but it's like, I look at
It's
this like,
platinum. It's better.
but for whatever reason, that always, I don't know. I like to question a lot of these like ideologies that New Age comes up with and that start getting popular. Like we start to create these little like egregores of consciousness of these ideas that like new ideologies or whatever. So I always like to question it, and I like to go back to like ancient information and explore that and see like what were they thinking. And a lot of times it resonates very strongly with me. And
Mm.
because I was just like, this makes sense to me when I looked at it. Like, I feel that. I know for myself, like, when I awakened, I regained so much of my spirit. Like, the right side of my brain, like, reinflated. Like, I
Mm.
felt. And so I'm like, that feels more right to me, that this is a very long, gradual process that we're all a part of, and that we are gradually evolving. And I see this wheel, when I look at this wheel, I see it as a Taurus field. And
Oh, okay. Now you're speaking my language.
yeah. So I see the evolution of consciousness just turning through these different cycles: golden, silver, bronze, dark, and back up again, right? Like I
Yeah.
see the evolution of consciousness rising and falling like a wave. And that yuga cycle is just like the larger scheme of it. It's like
Mhm.
I don't know if it's like 4 million years long or whatever. It's really long, really, really long period of time. And then we're getting into time, which I actually think like all of this is probably happening at once in this giant Taurus field.
Yeah, I'm
But
so down with that. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, so I feel like the reason that consciousness does that is just to keep experiencing new things. Like you said, there's
Yes. Yeah.
infinite timelines and infinite possibilities. And the way we learn is we face challenges a lot of times. Like a lot of
Mhm.
times that's what um helps us grow. And now here I know, like, I'm still like getting through this. What do I think about like morality? Like, I feel like morality is sort of murky.
Mm.
Um But feel like the purpose of it is for us to have these new experiences, and we're sort of like these little investigators for source. And it's like source wanted to experience itself on this plane, and we're here doing it for them. But like, I don't know. It's like, well, when you experience bad things, you don't want to experience that again, usually. So that's what causes you to grow and to go up again. You know what I mean? So it's hard for me not to judge the bad experiences, even though I've been through really awful stuff in my life, and it's given me like amazing growth opportunities. I'm still like this, like, I feel like a warrior for light or whatever. And when we were talking earlier about like positive, toxic positivity and love, like light to me is not just about love and light. It's like shining a light on all of it, you know, like leaving every rock unturned as much as you can, which I know is impossible, but anyway.
But there's so much to explore. And
well, that was such a great conversation with Wendy, and we talked about so many things that I have actually split this into 2 separate videos. So don't forget to check out part 2 up here for more deep conversations and lots of giggles. If you would like to learn more about some of the other women in the Women Working with Light interview series, don't forget to check out podcast.tanyaqc.com for more information and great interviews. And I just want to take a moment and say thank you for being here with me on my channel, for all of the love and support that you guys are sharing. And if you would like to support me and my channel and help this information continue to get out there and grow, please consider donating, and every little bit is really greatly appreciated. You can find a link in the description and more section. And, thank you for being you and being here and sharing everything that you have to say. I love your comments. I answer everything. And if you are resonating with what we talked about in this video or others, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Every little bit helps, and you never know who you might be helping simply by sharing what's in your mind and your heart and your intuition. Thank you so much for being here. I love you guys, and I will see you in the next video. I'm Tanya, and I am one of the women working with light. Bye.
Remember, this is...
Sorry, I'm just having a memory of something that's totally insane. Okay, finish your thing and then...
Cool. I love it.
Little editing happening there.
Don't worry.